Hi, it's Dr. Steve from Misericordia University, and welcome to Standards for Quality Online Teaching and Learning. This video represents instruction as part of EDU553, the graduate course Principles of Instructional Design. In this video, let's consider two different sets of national standards for quality online teaching and learning. And then let's conclude by having a brief overview of the remote class activities for this week's class. The first set of standards we will consider are the iNACOL standards. And iNACOL refers to the International Association for K-12 Online Learning. And I've provided a URL so you can download a PDF of these standards. The second set of standards are the NSQ, or the National Standards for Quality Organization Standards for Quality Online Learning. And again, you can see a URL here so you can access interactively their standards online. The NSQ standards have served as a benchmark for online programs for school districts and for state agencies since the year 2007. The iNACOL standards all talk about, and there are 11 of them, talk about what the online teacher is capable of doing. So let's take a very brief look at them, and there's much more to be said about each one. The online teacher, first of all, understands how to create effective online instruction. Again, a lot of information is packed into there. The online teacher can utilize a range of technologies to support learning and also engagement online. Building on that, the third standard states that the online teacher can encourage active learning and interaction, participation, and also collaboration. A whole lot is packed into that standard, and each of those individual elements is significant to create a very interactive and effective learning experience for online learners. Fourth standard states that the online teacher can promote student success through communication, feedback, and responsiveness to the learners. The iNACOL standards go on to say that the online teacher encourages safety and ethical and legal behavior online, that the teacher recognizes diversity among students and incorporates accommodations as is appropriate in online environments. And the next three standards in iNACOL deal with online assessment, that the teacher demonstrates competency in using online assessment, that the teacher can assess learner progress through assessment and can modify content of the course using data from those assessments. The final two iNACOL standards, first one deals with the teacher acting in a professional manner in order to promote the success of the learners. And finally, the online teacher can arrange media and content to help transfer knowledge in the most effective way in the online environment. So again, the teacher is very effective and competent in terms of working with various media, various online pedagogy, assessment, and in many, many ways, in a holistic way, to be able to support effective online learning. So the second set of standards that we will take a look at are the NSQ standards for quality online learning. Now you'll notice that on their website, they provide access to the standards in three different parts. The standards for online teaching, for quality online programs, and also quality for online courses. As we take a brief look at these standards, and again, there's a whole lot more involved and to be unpacked in each of these standards. Here's an overview. You can see that these standards look similar to the iNACOL standards we just looked at, and realize that iNACOL and NSQ are related. Really, the NSQ standards have kind of grown out of and been based on the iNACOL standards. So here's an overview of what they look like. Let's now focus for a moment on just several of these standards. So let's start by focusing in on the community building part of the NSQ standards. The first part of this suggests that the online teacher employs learner-centered strategies that leverage technology for collaboration. So two important thoughts here. Number one, learner-centered instructional strategies. And second of all, that the online teacher can leverage technology to support collaboration. Two very important aspects of building the sense of community in an online teaching and learning environment. Second, that the teacher creates expectations for appropriate interaction, so sets ground rules and helps foster the way that students will interact together in that online community. Third, that the teacher will develop a sense of community among culturally diverse students. And a second important part in here, fosters active learning among those diverse learners. Because for the online class to be very effective, the students all have to interact effectively together. And the teacher promotes interaction within online groups. And finally, in this area of community building, that the teacher will meet the learning needs of all the students. Again, it's an extra challenge in the online environment because you have different cultural backgrounds, different perspectives, and also the learners will all be at a distance, and they may or may not have ever met each other face to face. Let's focus for a moment on what NSQ says regarding digital pedagogy. So when we look at the online teacher, the teacher has to be adept enough in utilizing digital pedagogical tools, in other words, the way that we teach with technology to support important areas such as communication, students being productive and collaborating together, that they can analyze content as it's presented, in the presentation of the content, in research, in the delivery of that content, and again in interaction together and also with the instructor. A second area here, and there are more, but I want to focus on this one for a moment, that the online teacher has to be adept enough to be able to use different types of technological tools in order to interact effectively in online courses. Again, we just mentioned that it's important to foster that sense of community. So in this area of the standard, NSQ is suggesting that the teacher must be competent enough and secure enough to be able to nurture learner relationships, to encourage the interaction amongst learners, and to be able to monitor and motivate their engagement in the class. So in other words, we're talking more about fostering through technology those relationships that will be essential to effective learning within the online environment. And finally, especially as relates to this course in instructional design, let's focus for a moment on what NSQ standards talk about regarding the expectations for the online instructor regarding instructional design. First, NSQ suggests that the online teacher should be able to design learning experiences that utilize technology that efficiently engage learners. Again, engagement, as you're getting the drift if you were not already aware, very significant to promoting success in an online course environment. NSQ says that the teacher should use a formative approach to lesson design. That's what instructional design is at its heart. It's that formative approach, and we're going to be looking at design and the iterative processes. We're going to look at the theory and the research behind how to appropriately and effectively design learning. The teacher should be able to incorporate diverse media. So we have to take a survey of different types of media and how to use those and when to use the different media. Further, we want the teacher to be able to incorporate subject or content domain specific and also developmentally appropriate, age appropriate digital learning resources. And finally, the NSQ suggests that the teacher should continuously review and align the course content with the course objectives and standards. Again, that's at the heart of instructional design. In this course, we're going to take a look at the historical practices, the iterative practices, the ways that through research and development over years have come about to show us in today's world how we can effectively design instruction that will really constitute appropriate learning. So I wanted to focus in on what NSQ said about instructional design. In this course, we're going to consider all of these pieces. Now let's take a look at the remote class activities for week number 1 of our class. For our first remote class activity this week, let's create a brief timeline of instructional design history. You can work as an individual or in a pair, consult the articles that are provided, and also consider the information that was provided during instruction from this week, and then get a sense of the history of instructional design. What are some of the main points? Then use a tool such as TikiTalki or the one provided at classtools.net or another tool of your choice, and just highlight some of the main pieces of history, some of the main points of instructional design history, and display that in a timeline. When you're completed, upload your timeline link, or if it doesn't allow you to save the document and provide a link, then just take a screenshot and place that maybe in a document and upload that to Blackboard. For our second remote activity, let's create a wiki type discussion. So we use a discussion board, but we'll kind of use it like a wiki in which we will summarize, compare, and contrast instructional design models. Now, in the next class, we're going to take a deeper dive into the instructional design models. But for purposes of this week, start by choosing a model to analyze. Now in Blackboard, I provided a link to a shared document where you can indicate your selection. And you can work as an individual, you can work in a pair. Compare the steps of one instructional design model, the one that you're going to choose. Compare it with the general steps for instructional design that we discussed in class, and then post a response. You'll see that I have provided 3 guiding questions, items to hit on when you're responding in your first post. Now, after everybody responds and posts, let's read those posts and get a flavor for all of these different instructional design models, and then post a second response in which you describe which model appears to be the most appropriate fit for the instruction that you deliver. For our third remote activity, let's watch and react to a video by Robert Merrill. Now, Merrill he's a guru of instructional design and technology. He's outspoken, he's very definitive, and he's very compelling. So I hope you really enjoy his video. Let's watch that video, and then let's hold a discussion online. For this discussion, again, I have provided a number of questions to spark our discussion about this activity. You don't have to individually respond to every single one of those, but it's the hope that using these questions as a guide, that as a whole, as a group, we will have, at the end of the discussion, hit upon all of those or most of those questions. So this will be a true discussion in Blackboard. Make an initial post and then plan to respond to the posts of at least 2 other people. In remote activity number 4, let's start synthesizing all the information that we have considered during this first week of class. Let's hold a discussion based upon the standards that we looked at, the iNACOL and the NSQ standards. Describe the elements of an effective online course. Again, I've provided some guiding questions. You don't have to respond to each question individually, but the hope is that as a group, as a whole, by the end of the discussion, we would have hit upon all of these questions. After your initial post, plan to respond to the posts of at least 2 other individuals. For our 5th and final remote activity for week 1, let's engage in a project in which you redesign a face-to-face lesson plan to utilize in online learning. By doing this, we're going to pull together and synthesize all the learning of the first week's class and make it very practical application. So begin by selecting a lesson plan that you've used to teach in a traditional face-to-face classroom setting. So 1 class worth of material. Synthesizing what we've learned, redesign that lesson plan that will allow you to teach this lesson effectively in an online format. When you're finished, upload that new lesson plan to Blackboard. Now note, if you're not a current teacher or for any reason do not have access to a lesson plan, please consult with the instructor and we'll help give you access to some type of material with which you can work. This ends our video instruction for this week's class. Looking ahead at our next class, let's take a look at some current brain research. Let's tackle the question, how do people actually learn? So as we're making our way into instructional design as a means of designing instruction, let's start with the fundamentals about learning and look at some learning research and the physiological aspects of brain research. And then let's apply that to taking a deeper look at some instructional design models and what they practically mean for us and what we're going to do with them during this semester. Have a great week.